key skills in order to advance in your career. If you want to get a raise, if you want to get a promotion, public speaking, confident, clear public speaking is one of the things that every business will look for. Every organization, every agency, government, for-profit, not-for-profit, the ability to speak well in front of people makes a big difference. So
that's right.
All right. Here's our basic communication model. This slide is the one slide that you need to memorize, understand, and know well. I would say there's 5 parts, but you could break it down. You could extend this model to, 7 or 8 parts. But the 5 basic parts are the idea that the sender has to encode the message that they want to send. By encoding, look at it like encryption, decryption. Encoding the message is translating that message into the medium that we're going to use, whether it's typing an email or planning out your speech. It's the verbal and visual parts of communication. You encode the message through images and your own verbal and nonverbal speaking, or writing it down and choosing certain words to encode the message in the way that you think is the most appropriate format and the best channel. So channel is the medium. The word channel and medium mean the same thing, but you take the message and you send it through the channel, right? It's like a letter that's sent to another person, and the channel carries the letter, whether it's Airmax or Aramac, the like FedEx, right?
Yeah.
You have to send it through the channel. And there was a advertising expert in the United States named Marshall McLellan back in the 40s and 50s, 1950s, 1940s. He made the point that the medium is the message. So he says the medium, the channel, is the message in terms of what you're going to communicate is highly affected by the choice of medium. If you choose a phone call, you're going to communicate. You can communicate certain things in a certain way, versus if you choose a face-to-face meeting with somebody. By choosing a face-to-face meeting, you communicate a lot. The importance of your time, the need for face-to-face communication. You're getting a lot. It's a richer medium, so more information is going to be communicated versus just sending someone an email. The message is going to be condensed down to just an email, and you're going to communicate certain things because it's limited to the text format, right? So the medium impacts the message. Again, Marshall McLellan said the medium is the message, kind of just a punchy, quick, easy way for him to say that they're connected. The idea is the message and the medium are very closely connected. They're going to affect one another, your choice of medium. So the sender encodes the message, it's transmitted through the channel, and it's received by the receiver, the other person on the end of the communication, and they have to decode the message, right? So the receiver decodes the message. Decoding is the 4th step in. If you just look at the top line, the top row here, we have sender encoding, message through the channel, and receiver decoding. So I always just position it like you have a sender on one end and a receiver on another end, and they have to encode and decode the message which is in between them. So they're both kind of reaching out and grasping and holding the message. The sender's handing the message to the receiver is grasping the message and taking it for themselves. And the idea of decoding is they're going to say, open up this letter, read through and understand. I mean, people do this quickly. I'm just describing it in a slow format so that we can understand, but the receiver has to decode the message, meaning they're going to interpret what you said based on their frame of reference, based on their perspective, based on their personality, what they think you're saying. So their ability to grasp, receive, and understand what you're saying is going to be filtered through their past experiences language, and other things. And that's kind of their ability to decode the message and understand what you're saying. So a good speaker considers what their audience needs to hear and how their audience is going to interpret them. They try and put themselves in the position of their audience so that they can communicate effectively. It's one of the key skills with a presentation and public speaker is think about what your audience is thinking. Think about what your audience is thinking, right? Think about what your audience needs to hear. Think about what they're going to get out of this, right? What's in it for them? And before you think about what's in it for you, what's in it for them. And that helps you make the message more easily received by the receiver so they can decode it. And this idea of noise comes in. Noise is anything that interferes with communication. So if somebody's having a hard time understanding what you're saying because of an accent or different language, because of anything that's interfering, so there could be technology, could be a form of noise. Maybe there's a buzzing sound, so there's physical noise, but there's also filters and different perspectives, information overload. Those can, in terms of the communication model, we'd put those in the category of noise because they inhibit or reduce the effectiveness of communication. Noises are barriers to communication, right? They're obstacles to communication. Noise is anything that slows down and creates problems for communication. Right? Stereotypes, bias, those types of things as well. So we have the 5 steps: sender, encoding, message, receiver, decoding, message. The noise limits the effectiveness of the message, and then feedback, normal business management model. We like the idea of a feedback loop. And in many ways, the communication model was one of the first ideas to use the feedback loop to point out that when the receiver becomes the sender, the model reverses itself and you create feedback. So we would call this an interactive communication model. When you're speaking in a theater, it's usually one-to-many and there's very limited feedback, right? A good speaker can get some feedback from the audience, but for the most part, you're going to do, 90% of the talking, probably 95, 98% of the talking, right?
One way.
One way, exactly. But it's good in a meeting and with leaders and subordinates and people as you're talking with people to have a feedback loop that allows you to become the receiver and interpret what the other person is saying to confirm what you said, and more importantly, I would say, gain information from them about what they understand, asking good questions, right? So communication is never just telling, it's asking good questions. That's another key skill in communication, is finding ways to ask good questions, because questions are one of the most effective forms of communication, right? Asking good questions. All right. Again, I like to think the simplest model is the sender encodes the message in the channel. So I kind of combine the idea of the message and the channel because it's what's communicated through the form of communication. But you could break that up into 2 parts if you want to. So the simple model, the simplest version of the model is 5 steps. Sender encodes message decoded by the receiver. Sender encodes message decoded by the receiver. And then you have noise and feedback, and you could break that down further.